And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is for you. So, good to see you today. Thank you so much for joining me. Great show ahead. Great show ahead. You're going to find this one very, very interesting. Well, my little lapel mic quit before we started. I can't get it to work. I hope the sound is loud enough for you. I'll try to speak up if I can here. But again, thank you for joining me. Danny Mariano is here with us, and he's going to be joining us in just a little bit. Phil Courtis is my co host. I'm hoping that he makes it online. A little different time zone in Australia where he lives, and excited to have him join us as well. Some good shows coming up next week. We've got Gary from Fear Not. And I'm excited that he's going to be with us next week. Gary Henson, there he is, and a really great lineup for next month as well. I'm excited every week when we do this show. It's so good to chat with people, especially some that I haven't seen for a while, some that I haven't met. This is one of those days, and I'm excited for that to happen. So, a lot going on. We have very soon, in just a week and a half, we have our gathering here at Sanctuary. It's the first Saturday of every month, and this time it's May 3rd. And don't miss it. The Sanctuary Worship Band will be playing heavy metal worship, really good stuff, and always a few surprises. And every single Sunday here at the Storehouse, we have church, and we appreciate you joining us. Our worship team plays every Sunday, led by Jim Laverty from Barron Cross, and Glenn, the drummer for Vengeance, and Chris, the guitar player for Fear Not, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of band people that make up the worship team, and love to have you join us every single Sunday. Sunday. Yeah. So, a lot of things coming up. Immortal Fest is one of the big ones. And if you haven't planned to come to the Sanctuary 40th anniversary party, that's what the first part one of Immortal Fest is all about. We've got our worship team and our worship band coming. I'll be speaking. I'll also be introducing all of the bands. Great bands. And we've got Vengeance back on stage joining us too. Luke Easter, who is one of the guys that comes to church here, is going to be singing for Vengeance, and that'll be exciting to see. Reign of Glory, Honor and Glory, the Disciple guys. Chaotic Resemblance, love that band. Worldview, and Deny the Fallen, Human Code, Iron Wrath, White Cross, Inner Siege, Fear Not, Saint, Millennial Reign, Iron Wrath. So many really, really great bands. But wait, there's more. Part two will be happening also with the protest. Ignescent, Images of Eden, we had on last week. Randy Stonehill, for those of you that remember Randy. Les Carlson, Bride, Neon Cross, Sacred Warrior, King James back, Daniel Band, Durbin, Tristan, um, Weapons of God, Apologetics, Stricken, etc., etc. Just such a great time. And I'll be hosting both events, introducing all the bands, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there also. Very cool. Well, folks, it's been a really great time here in Tennessee. Finally, we have some warmer weather. I don't know what it's like where you're at. Let me know. And in fact, if you haven't let me know that you're here yet, please do. I'd like to welcome you. Let me know where you're from, and let me know what's going on with you. Um, like to acknowledge that. Yeah. So, also coming up this weekend is Saturday. I believe actually John, okay. John says it's a heavy metal video podcast. I thought we were going to do The Odd Couple, but I guess we're doing Heaven's Metal. That's great. And we'll do that this weekend. And then the following Saturday, we'll do The Odd Couple. And looking forward to both of them. Great podcasts, broadcasts. Um, Again, followed by the Worship at Full Volume, our worship one. And then we're going to introduce a new one soon called Joy Story that I'm going to be doing. Kind of good news and people telling some great um, stories of the faith. So Seth is here. Good morning to you, Seth. Folks, sign in. Let me know where you're watching from. That would be a good thing to know. Nada is here. Good morning to you. And again, sign in. Let me know. Emma, our good friend from Montana. Her last name isn't Montana, it's Olson. She's a good friend. And her sons are actually the guys in Mangled Carpenter, great band. And she says, good morning, PB. Good morning to you as well. Forrest says, good morning, everyone. We, folks, I really enjoy seeing so many names every single week that come back. And thank you, so many of you that watch the broadcast. Well, I would like to say religiously. Yeah, watching it all the time. Victoria is here. Good morning to you. And folks, again, let me know where you're watching from. David White is here. Happy Easter Wednesday. I guess it is. And I appreciate that. 44 degrees in Littleton, Colorado. We have a little warmer weather here. I think it's going to be 80 degrees today. So we're doubling that here. But yeah, beautiful day. And I'm sure it is in Colorado. Our good friend Jonas is here. Says good evening from Kenya and in Africa. And Jonas is one of the hosts for Worship at Full Volume. And you'll see that in a couple of weeks again. And we're excited for those guys to be back in the air. The first episode of Worship at Full Volume was awesome. If you haven't watched it, go back and do that. That would be great. And Joel is here. He says, I want to say rest in peace, Pope Francis. Yeah. And yeah, that was, they say that he wanted to do Easter service and then he told God he was done and he did the Easter service and then died just a few hours later. So that's pretty cool. But he served for a whole lot of years, didn't he? Axel is here with us today. He says, sounds great. Good. That's awesome. And AV, our good friend, he said, just wanted to let you know I didn't get a new job last week. I'm fine with it, but God is working in the background and I got to keep applying for new jobs and ask him where he wants me to be. And I'm sure you're not alone, AV. That's although the job market is coming back and as more and more manufacturing is moving to the US and more jobs are opening up, it really does help the job market. So sure hope you're able to find something good. Yeah. And Emma says, prayers, everyone has a blessed day. Thank you. Thank you. And it's a blessing kind of day, isn't it? Yeah. So David says, I'm getting 2 t-shirts from Sanctuary. And one is Teach, Eat, Meet, Pray. And the other is the Sanctuary shirt. Can I show you another one that we have? This is our shirt of the year. And it's awesome. If I can get it in here. Open the eyes of my heart. Such a great shirt. And we've got that. There we are. There's all of our stuff, all of our posters, our mugs, our t-shirts. We've got a lot of stuff. And it's all available. Helps us keep all the ministries going here as well. So appreciate you being involved. Well, John, I'm not sure if our co-host is here. If he's not, we'll continue and kind of do something else a little different. So I'll wait to hear from John here. Yeah. So, all right. Well, folks, once again, Danny Mariano is uh, is here with us from Rage of Angels. Some of you are saying, "Yeah, I remember them." Yeah, and that's cool. So we're going to take a little break here, and when we come back, Danny Mariano will be here with us. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, my friends. I hope to see you this year at the Loud and Proud Festival. I'm going to be there along with a lot of great bands and a lot of great people. Great fellowship, great music, great time together. Loud and Proud Festival coming up.
Danny Mariano is here with us today. And Danny, good to have you here, my friend. Really good to have you join the show.
Good morning, Pastor Bob. So glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. So, I think it was around, you have to remind me, 1987, 1988.
Yeah, 1987. Yep.
Yeah, that's the
Yep.
outfit. And I remember it was The Buzz. Now, we were releasing a couple albums that year. I remember that's the year that I think we put out Vengeance that year. So we kind of started to dip our toes into the more extreme music. But I think there was a Deliverance album that came out that year. There were a few others. And then Rage of Angels came out and caught us all off guard. It was such a great album. And you've got some stories to tell from those days. And the one thing that people ask a lot is, um, whatever happened to Rage of Angels? Whatever happened to those guys? Because everybody remembers when all of that happened. And so Danny, we're doing a "Where Are They Now" broadcast with you.
Well, I'm just blown away that the fact that you guys remembered me. So thank you so much for bringing me on here.
Well, it's so good to have you here. So take us back, 1987. You put together a band. So you were kind of in the scene during that time. You
Yeah,
were
I was pretty wrapped up into the regular rock and roll scene in the tri-state area. You
yeah,
know, going out and seeing all the shows and trying to get a record deal, like most of the guys in the business at the time.
yes.
Spinning
And
my wheels, just going
tri-
nowhere
you say tri-state, you mean New Jersey, New York,
in Connecticut.
and Connecticut,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, we live about 30 minutes from the city. So I just beating the horse, trying to get a record deal like everybody back then. Everybody was jumping on the bandwagon and watching the bands come down the pike that were getting signed, and it just was like a magical, like I tell everybody, it was a kind of a magical night. I came home one night and was sitting at the dinner table. My father was a pastor, a minister, And he called me in. He said, what are you doing? Just beating this horse, trying to get a record deal. You're singing, singing about drugs, singing about chicks and alcohol and everything else down, that came with it. And he said, why don't you sing about something that's true to your heart? God's never let our family down. He's always been by our side through thick and thin. Why don't you take 5 minutes and write a song uh, about the Lord? And I really thought it was a joke at first. And I went downstairs in the studio and started penning my first song. And it was Leave You or Forsake You. Of course, the Bible verse, I'll never leave you or forsake you. And I came upstairs and kind of gave it to my dad and said, what do you think? And he's like, this is what I'm talking about. People need to hear,
Awesome.
people need to hear this message. Uh, that all sounds great, except I didn't have any real Christian or holy or spiritual guys that were like me. I kind of felt alienated. I mean, not too many people that I knew were pastors' kids.
Yes.
So, um, so again, I'm going to leave it up to my dad. My dad was doing something for the church and went to the local um, pawn shop. And there was a lady who always worked behind the counter. She owned it. And she was talking and said, hey, so what is your kid doing for the summer? And my dad said, oh, he's a musician. He's home. I wish I could get him a job down here. Do you need anybody to work? And she said, well, let me tell you what, I got an 18-year-old kid at home who just graduated and he's got nothing going on. Maybe we can get them together. And my father said, listen, I'm not joking. I'm going to give you his number. Have him. Now he came home. I was probably 4 or 5 years older than Greg at the time. He said, listen, just hear me out. I got this kid who just graduated high school. He said, I don't know if you've ever heard this guitar player, Randy Rhoads. He said, this kid's, he goes, her son's obsessed with Randy Rhoads. That's what he plays like. That's what they told me to tell
Wow.
you. So I said, give me this kid's phone number.
You can't be. Yeah.
Yes. So I called Greg up and I said, hey, you don't know me. My dad just left your mom down to pawn shop. I said, and I'm sorry, it wasn't a pawn shop. It was a rent-a-center. So I said, listen, do you want to come over and just go through some stuff? Let me hum you some songs and see what you think, some ideas. And he was at my house for a few hours, and just a few hours is here. We came up with Reason to Rock. We came up with Leave You or Forsake You. We came up with Don't Give Up. I mean, 4 or 5 of those songs were done the same day or the same weekend, just playing with him. And he did. He played like a Randy Rhoads. He had such a fire about him. He was just a kid who wanted to play. At that point, I don't even think he understood where we were headed, like what the message was going to be.
Yes.
Like, for a minute, it took him a little bit to get used to, like, what are we doing? So, and again, I really want to say, like, at that time, White Cross had just come out, Neon Cross, One Bad Pig was out. Of course, the Rez Band was already out. Striper was just getting on the scene with Rock's Regime.
Yeah.
And it's I'm gonna use the Lord a lot because when God has His hand in something, sometimes you don't see it till way afterwards. You're like, that would have never happened right there. There's just no way. Uh, because I was this long-haired, leather-clad kid who showed up in church late, during my father's sermons and stuff, coming in from the city late the night before. The congregation always looked at me, with 3 eyes, like, who's this kid? And I want to say my father made a remark from the pulpit that weekend that I met with Greg and said something to the effect of, hey, my son and this guitar player just got together. They're writing some Christian music. Man, you guys got to hear it. This is some stuff. He goes, it's not for me, and it may not be for a lot of the congregation, but you really need to hear it before chastising them, kind of. And wouldn't you know it, one of the parishioners ran the college radio station at Fairfield University, is a huge university here in Connecticut. And he came up to me afterwards and said, hey, listen, when you get done doing 2 or 3 songs as a demo, I'd like to get them. And of course, immediately we went and made demos. And before we know it, he's running a Christian broadcasting section like for 2 hours every Sunday night. And sure enough, he starts playing Rage of Angels on the radio. and it starts taking off in the area, and people start picking it up.
Mm.
And this is how things started snowballing. First, it was just Greg and I putting everything together. And I said, "Listen, we need other players. I don't know who we're going to find who is going to jump on board with this because it's got Christian overtones or religious overtone. How do I sell that to people?" At the time, Striper was getting killed for throwing Bibles out. People were like screaming about it. Have you heard about the band that's throwing Bibles out? So, I was like, oh man, like how am I going to sell this? And I was saying to John, I just live in a tough part of the country. Not, as far as Christian musicians. I mean, I know Michael Sweet lives up here now in Massachusetts, but
Yeah.
back then there just really wasn't a lot of guys that wanted to get into that industry, for whatever reason. Um, and and again, I was talking to John, like, people can't forget that it's called the music business, and I don't care if it's a Christian music business or the secular. It's a business. People are here to make money. You want to make a living. You want to survive. When people go into this, and you're like, man, how can I do this for my life? This is my passion. This is what God's put on my heart. How do I run with this?
Mm.
That changes things. I mean, you probably have heard it through the years from 100 secular and Christian bands. Everything's great. Sitting down, writing music, playing at your local coffee houses or your churches or playing it at bars or wherever you want to sell it. And you're like, man, this is incredible. I'm glorifying God and everything's wonderful. How can I make this a business? Well, when it becomes a business, everything changes.
Yes.
And it just does. I mean, once money gets involved and, you got to start hiring people to distribute your stuff or, merchandising or anything else that comes with it, it all turns into cash. So,
Yes.
you know, I hope I'm not rambling too much for you.
No. This is great. This is great.
So,
Well, 1987,
yeah.
Danny, Striper had been out for 2 years,
Mhm.
just hitting. Um, Sanctuary was actually 2 years old.
Wow.
Um, and this was the very beginning of things. So the number of bands releasing music was very limited. You can walk into a Christian bookstore now, and the walls are covered with
Flooded.
all
Yeah.
kinds of rock and roll and metal. And now 40 years later, we've got 17 different genres of heavy metal. I mean, it's
Yeah.
exploded then.
Right.
But you were there on the scene at the very beginning. 1987 was the year that things were really starting to hit. A lot more bands were putting things out. We had just started Intense Records,
Wow.
start putting things out, and I think that was the year we also released California Metal.
Yeah.
That
Yeah. We were on that. Sure.
people, yeah,
We were on East Coast Metal. I'm sorry. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this was the beginnings of a lot of things. And Danny, the buzz during that time was exciting.
Oh, it was incredible. It really. I said this to you when we first behind the scenes here. Your name was so synonymous, like Pastor Bob Beeman. Like like I would read the articles. I would talk to Doug Van Pelt from Heaven's Metal
Yeah,
weekly. I mean, we were on the phone weekly, just getting the scoop and going back and forth about different stuff. Because again, I really felt sheltered up in this East Coast area from a
yeah,
lot of the stuff that was going on from Holy Soldier, Barren Cross, everything that was going on the West Coast. I
yes.
really felt like I didn't have in touch, but your name always came up, and like I said, like, I would show my father, look at Pastor Bob Beeman is out there preaching to these guys. He's their pastor. And that's why this was such an honor to finally get to meet you,
Oh,
to get to share this with you. I mean, because you were there from the beginning as well.
yeah, and Danny, and it has been very exciting. And those were such. Well, we didn't have any idea what we were doing, and not that we do now, but
Right.
you know, but we didn't. And I had come out of the Jesus People movement,
Movement. Yeah, sure.
the Jesus Revolution. I was, in the big tent. I was, part of that whole movement.
Wow.
And so I was very excited to see another movement, and it really was. It really was. But we had no idea what we were doing. And I remember our first service. Michael Sweet was the worship leader, and I remember nobody sang. They didn't get that part.
Mm,
We're watching him sing, you know.
funny. Yeah.
And it took a
Interesting.
long time for people to be educated. And how do you do church? You know, how does this work? Because these were all people out of the clubs and the streets and, you know,
Sure.
movement. And and then Jim from Barron Cross took over the worship, and he still is our worship leader.
I, I,
But it,
I was watching that in the beginning,
yeah,
your whole commercial for that. Boy, we just got back from Nashville just 6 months ago. I honestly, I didn't know you guys were out there.
oh
Boy,
yeah,
I wish I could have knocked on the door and came in there
I
and
wish.
stayed
Yeah,
and came to one of your services. It just sounds
yeah,
phenomenal.
please do.
Absolutely.
We'd love to have you. Yeah, you know, and I tell the guys now we're older. I'm not sure we're wiser, but you know, Danny, my whole staff, almost every one of them have been with me almost 4 decades now.
Wow.
Um, it's just been exciting to watch this movement that continues to go. And the good news is, you know, we've seen all these different paths that heavy metal is taking.
Sure.
Oh, and we started with melodic metal and a few years ago, death metal, black metal,
Yeah.
you know, fill in the blank.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And now I just finished speaking in 3 different countries in Europe and just watching, you know, the crowds go crazy with Saint, with Tourniquet and with White Cross and you know some of the bands that we had and the younger kids now are starting to really get excited about melodic metal and the old style again.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
it's all coming around again. You may want to release that album one more time, you know?
Yeah, I told Johnny I'm in talks right now with a studio for
Oh,
remastering. I've had plenty of people asking me through the years, relentlessly, and I said to John, it's not because I don't want to. And he laughed, but I said I'm kind of lazy. I said I've got my hands in so much music going on, and not that Rage of Angels is, of course, my baby. I mean, it's
yeah,
been there from the beginning,
yeah,
but I have, and I'm like you. I'm older now. I'll be 63 in May on May 10th, and me and the media and sitting behind a keyboard sometimes don't go together well. It's easy for me to sit down and pen. It's easy for me to sit down and run the recorder to record. But when I have to start doing stuff online or try to figure so I have a guy at the studio right now looking into the remastering. And you can see the poster behind the Rage of Angels poster I got. I
yes.
probably start putting some of that stuff out that I had from before. And
Uh,
so I am going to start touching on it. I need to say a big shout out right here. I see two of my personal friends, Kimmy and Shauna from Connecticut. I'm so glad you guys signed in this morning. I love them both.
yeah,
Uh, on a quick note, life goes on. We just lost a very personal friend up here in Connecticut who was friends to thousands of people. His name was Jay Piccarillo, one of the biggest, hardest, most loving characters who just died of a sudden heart attack a couple days ago. And most of Connecticut and my friends are in mourning. And I just pray that God's comfort will just touch everybody this weekend. And I'm just glad that they took 2 minutes out of their time to tune in to us this morning.
yeah, yes. Awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, dude, also I want to go back to 1987 for a minute. And the number one question I think, Danny, that people have is that album hit and it hit hard.
Mm.
People were very excited. And then it seemed like nothing happened after that. And
Yeah.
that's why we're doing a Where Are They Now with you.
So, you know,
Tell us what happened.
yeah, it's interesting. So, Doug Mann from REX New York came
Yeah.
up and found us, and I've been, and I want to say this. I want to apologize through all these years, um, you know, through Heaven's Metal and a couple other fanzines that used to come out. It was tough times. Like you said, we don't know what we're doing. It's the first time for all of us. This was the first time for me getting a record deal, working with the Christian industry. Hey, listen, emotions are emotions. That's why, you got to pray to God to give you peace and give you understanding and try to guide you in the way that he wants you to. But, back in the day, I was upset. I mean, I kind of, and I'm going to say it. Here's the word of the day. I put my faith in the industry, and I didn't put my faith enough in the Lord, because and I'm certainly not going to start bad mouthing people. I've done enough of that, and I apologize if I've done that in the past. The industry did not go the way that we thought it was going to go, and people are not perfect. That's 100%, and that's why there's the grace of God. We got our act together. REX came out to Connecticut, put us in a local studio. Here I am having some Bible studies with the guys in my band. I don't ever want to judge anybody's Christianity or spirituality. I mean, they were all spiritual guys. Were they all 100% on fire for the Lord? Yeah, let's go get them. No, I had some guys who were there for the ride and enjoyed playing the band, enjoyed the message, and loved the Lord, but did not sign up to be pastors. And I think most of the, when Christian heavy metal came out, don't forget that was a hard sell. I mean, God bless you. You got to keep your hair. You got to keep your hair. We all had the hair, and like I said, I was showing up in church in leather pants, leather jacket, smelling like patchouli every weekend.
That was the whole church.
Yeah, that's the whole church. And people had to swallow that. I mean, on top of it, you wanted to hand them whatever I'm doing. I mean, it was just as loud as Motley Crue or Rat or anything else, and they were like, "What are you selling us?" So here I am. I got these guys together. We get into the studio up here. My good friends from Obsession had just got done doing their album at Audio West in Connecticut. Mike Facera, who was playing with Ingve, some other people. So we went in there. We all had a good mind of what we wanted to do, and REX let us run with it. But we didn't realize that they ran out of money. So when it came time to mix the album down, there was like this dead spot, and we were like, "What's going on with our album?" And finally, I was just telling John, I got a call from John and Dino Elefante. I don't know them. I don't know them from a can of paint. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Hey, Danny, it's John Elefante. I'm out here with Regency Records." Okay, who are you? What's going on? He said, "Well, we just bought your rights to your album. We're going to end up mastering this for you guys." He said, "So I'm going to spend 2 to 3 hours with you on the phone. Let's go over what kind of effects you want on the vocals, on the guitars, on blah, 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 all this stuff."
Right.
So we kind of
we put one of the songs on East Coast Metal on the East Coast.
East Coast, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, either somebody's watching you or something. I don't know what they put. I don't remember which one. That's funny. No, that's Heaven's Metal. Oh, now that we're on like 14 compilations, and people have been. This is classic metal. People have been sending me different tapes over the last couple of months.
Yeah.
I forget which one was on East Coast.
Yeah.
But
John and Dino did all of the. Well, they did a lot of our stuff. We worked on a million albums with them, but
if you can imagine trying to, if you can imagine trying to master without sitting behind the console, telling the guy what you want, more echo, more delay. Let's say, so that's what he had to work with. So he had, 40 pages worth of these songs and what we wanted and how we wanted. And I was saying to Johnny yesterday, boy, they took out a lot on that album because we had a lot of guitar intros and different effects that were just wiped away. And as a matter of fact, we had I wrote a ballad called "Gone Forever," which got swiped by the airport through the magnifying, whatever.
No.
And they wiped clean the whole song. So when they called me, he said, "You know that you had that ballad, Go On Forever." Well, it's gone forever. I said, "Oh man, I can't believe it." So, and I said sometimes it was a godsend, sometimes it wasn't, because I had people calling me going, "Oh, the thing we love about your album is there's no downtime. It just rocks from beginning to end."
It does, yes.
I said, "Well, there was this great ballad that was supposed to be right in the middle that ended up not being there." But
yeah.
Anyway, so Regency Records grabbed that and they did the master on it. And unfortunately, all of the J cards were already printed, and so were the album covers. So John and Dino did not get any credit. I mean, they got credit, they got paid, but they didn't get any of the credits that went on that album.
Hmm.
So, so that little mix-up right there
Yeah.
stirred the band a little bit because there was some downtime. We had to wait. We weren't allowed to be there for the final mix. That ticked off a bunch of guys because everybody wanted,
Totally get it.
yeah, guys are like, that's not my guitar sound. I want this. I want that.
Let me fill in the blanks a little bit for you too.
Okay.
So when we first started, we couldn't get anybody to sign any of the bands. It was impossible.
Hmm.
And and Dino told me one day that there was a company that was they were doing wedding soundtracks. You
Hmm.
know, you add your vocal and you have the soundtrack behind you,
Yeah, sure.
specializing in weddings, wedding soundtracks. This company called Regency, and they were looking at expanding a little bit and were open to doing some things. Well, we hit them with California Metal first,
Oh, wow.
and that's where we all started. And Regency had no clue what was going on. I mean, I am so thankful for those guys because nobody would take the bands. And we thought if we did some compilations, we can see which bands are the most popular and which ones we should record first and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that. But if it hadn't been for Regency, we never would have gotten things off the ground. But I guess it was a really green time. None of us knew what we were doing, except for John and Dino,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
very seasoned, and of course John
Sure. With
at
Kansas.
Kansas, and
Yeah.
Dino was, you know, uh, really, really to this day, I've worked with a lot of producers, and he's the most brilliant.
Well, we couldn't be more thrilled with the outcome of our album. Like I
Yeah.
said, the guys were upset that we weren't there for the final mix down and
Mm.
so on, and everybody hemmed and hawed. But when things were finally done and we got the copies were sent to our house, and it's so funny to think about that. We're putting the CDs on or putting the records on our record players and listen to it. We even had cassette players back then. So we jump in the car and put our cassette in the CD, and it sounded phenomenal. So John and Dino did just an incredible job.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the cool thing is that Dino's back working with us again.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Okay.
George Ochoa, I don't know if you know George from Recon, from Deliverance, now Worldview, um, and other bands. He's got a lot of projects going. He just lives in the same town that I do, and he's got a great studio in his home. And Dino's been coming up and helping to put all the final touches together on some of the albums. So you know, this industry has really been a family too.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's so good to have some of the same people still involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But
So,
anyway,
well, I'll get back onto this. So after the album came out, and like you said, there was this great rush. People were like, "Wow, where did this come from?" Especially out of the East Coast. We were this huge flash in the pan. Um, I don't know if it was Regency or REX or who knew what to do with us. REX really wasn't big enough to
no,
support a tour or anything like that. They
they're
just got us,
getting started. Yeah,
yeah. Uh, and I'll just jump ahead and say it like this. So Regency says, listen, we're going to send you out to Chicago. I don't know if it was JPUS or the Jesus People USA, or I forget what festival it was. But all this to say, we were signed up to go out and do this festival. This was going to be
probably Cornerstone.
Cornerstone. I'm sorry. You're
Mm.
right. That's what it was.
Yeah.
We had the contract, we signed it, got our trucks in, loaded them up. We were actually using Queensryche's light system.
Yeah.
And this was like clockwork. I don't know any other way to say it. Like, we got everything together. Steelheart, which was called Red Alert, our best friends, are in the next room. We both rented out of the same studio. They just fired their drummer. And Mike came over and said, "Hey, man, I need to ask you a big favor. I need to borrow Johnny for the next week. We have a showcase with MCA Records. They're coming in. Can I please just use them? I promise. We'll give them right back to you. I said, sure, no problem. Long story short, we helped them. They used our equipment. We helped them paint the studio. After their showcase, we brought all of our stuff back out and packed it back in our truck and waited. And John never came out. And a couple hours later, they walked out and said, hey, we just signed $1 million deal with MCA Records. And Johnny signed on the bottom line too. We're going to buy him out of your contract. And that was the beginning of the end right there. You know, we were just really in disbelief. Guys went home with their heads in their hands. They didn't know what to do. 3 or 4 days had passed. I went down to our studio where we had stacks of Marshalls across the back, 3 stacks on each side. And Frankie's stacks were all missing from there. I thought we had gotten robbed. And I called the guys and said, I can't, Frank's stuff is gone. Come down here. And he came down and I called Frank. No answer, no answer. Finally, somebody called me and said, hey, did you hear Steel Heart wanted a second guitar player? They just grabbed Frankie as well. You know, they thought he played with John so well in your band. They wanted to keep it. So I was like, you have got to be kidding me.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, you know, like John was saying, boy, was it tough. It was a tough pill to swallow. Here I am. We had come up the ladder so quick. Things were moving in such a great direction. And again, you know, we're back to the business end. Regency or REX, we're glad to sign those guys out of our contract because they got a good paycheck from MCA. They knew what they were doing. We tried picking up a friend of mine was playing with Joan Jett's drummer. He had some downtime. He came, this guy Vic Loud came in and played with us for a few months, was in the studio. We did a couple shows with them. But it just didn't pan out. It wasn't the same. Wasn't the same chemistry. Again, trying to get those guys on board as far as the Christian message behind the band and what we stood for. You know, I wish I had different players in my wheelhouse to pull out and be like, hey, let's just keep this thing running. We can make it work. But I really didn't have anybody.
No, and those are the early days. There weren't a lot of people to choose from.
No, good players. I mean, you had to have a standard, you know, and I already had a sound. I already knew what I would needed to hear.
Yes.
You know, so looking for talented Christian musicians who are really on their game, who could step in and really wield the guitar or play the drums like I needed to them. You know, I didn't have them. They just weren't there.
Yeah.
So sad.
So what did you do from that point then? Did you realize right away that this wasn't going to work, or did you try to keep things going and just couldn't seem to make the wheels turn?
Basically, we tried to make it work for a while and just could not get it off the ground. You know, it just was not happening. And it's funny. I could look at this in the terms of backsliding. Like at that point, I started getting calls from different bands all over. Hey man, we need a front man. We know this thing just fell apart on you. We could really use you. Of course, I went and I jumped in with this band called Pin Siren, which is a secular band.
Mm-hmm.
And it was probably one of the biggest things I ever did. I mean, as far as praise for myself, yeah, I got great accolades throughout the world of sounding like Sebastian and everything else. The album did great. But again, that was right at the touch of Nirvana and Soundgarden and everybody else. Those wonderful 90s came in and destroyed the rest of us, you know.
That was the worst time.
That was the worst time. So it was a double kick to the chin, you know. I was like, okay.
Yes. You know? And although Sebastian Bach had a great voice.
Sure.
But and that voice would definitely sell in any other market besides grunge. And grunge, you know, metal internationally never died, but it sure did here for a while.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, I've done the country thing. I have a country band that's shopping all over Nashville called Roadside Poets. We've got 6 or 7 videos out, doing really good. We got some people shopping that. I have another metal band right now called Love and War that I just put out.
Mm,
And we're doing singles. We're just putting out singles. We just started 2 months ago, dropping the singles. We got 3 or 4 videos. Oh yeah, there's the guys there. The guy on the right is Ralph Guzzi. He's a guitar player for a band called Dirt, which is another big metal band out of Connecticut, and they're
great.
about to tour Germany. But him and I got together and formed this band, and to have done like 99.9 of the writing in this band. Christian metal band? No. Am I a Christian? Yes. So my lyrics and things that I write towards this um, are centered around God and
Yeah,
centered around spiritual things.
awesome.
I try not to put a label on things anymore because, boy, I've seen people go down the wrong road putting labels on people and judging people for what they are. I have the Lord in my heart. I see with the eyes of God. I try to love people all the same, and as soon as music's like art, and you try to go, "Hey, man, I'm a Christian," and somebody goes, "Oh, that's great," and this guy goes, "Well, I'm not a Christian," but right, all of a sudden they don't want to look at, and I'm like, "Listen, let's not put the label on it.
Yes.
This is art. Look at it, and if I and I'm hopefully I'm leading you down the path with your eyes to see where I'm headed. You
Yeah,
know,
absolutely. I used to sit down with bands, Danny, and ask them this question. Who is your audience?
right?
Is your audience a Christian audience? Is it a secular audience? What do you want to do? Do you want to strengthen the Christian audience and bring a more vital walk of faith to that audience, which is very valid, which is a great ministry? Or do you want to bring God into a dark place, people that have never heard about him? And you really go about them completely different.
Sure, absolutely.
And and I think both are very valid, just depending on what God calls you to do.
Yeah, you have to stay in your faith. You
Yeah,
have to stay solid in your faith at all times,
yeah,
because it could pull you one way or the other. If you let them get the best of you, or you focus too much on yourself, you know, you lose sight immediately.
yeah,
And I was telling you before this started too, like I wanted to get that tattoo of unshakable faith. Through too many times in my life, I've realized that nothing's going to shake my faith in God.
yeah,
People laugh. People, how do you believe in God? You don't see him. All the regular jive they get from people throughout the years. And listen, if you've had faith in God and He's proved Himself to you, which He will time and time again, just ask Him to. Uh, you all you need is one time, and you'll never let go of that.
mm,
And I don't care if it's in your music or I drive a truck during the day. I mean, that's my regular job. You just need to put your faith in no matter what you're doing, and have that as your foundation.
yes, 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 absolutely.
I'm preaching to the preacher.
No, 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 I appreciate that.
uh, you know,
You know, I guess another question that I've gotten about Rage of Angels is there ever a chance of doing some shows again to reunite with some of the original guys? We've had such great success with the Immortal Fest.
really.
Yeah, we really have. A lot of the old bands had quit playing and put the band back together for the festival and are now traveling again because there's this whole new thing happening right now with metal, and the old classic metal is really coming back. And there are bands that have been around since those days, White Cross and,
Yeah,
and Barren Cross and obviously Striper.
I
But
almost did something with Rex.
yeah,
A few
yeah,
years ago, Rex sent me some. I was looking to do a new album, and Rex sent me some ideas, and
yeah,
we went back and forth, corresponded a couple times, and then I was like, you know,
guy.
I see all the guys from Rage. I
Yeah,
see they're all on the music scene here. They all play in cover bands weekly, except for the drummer. John passed. Our drummer passed away.
yeah.
Um, but I see Frankie, Dale, and Greg, uh, and,
Well,
and it
if you
just never comes up. I wish.
if you ever feel like you're ready just to do even a one-time concert, let me know. We'll have you play Immortal Fest because
Oh, that would be incredible.
be great. And that's from Immortal Fest right there.
What a great shot.
Yeah, it is. And but it would be. I'm sure there's so many fans from the days that would love to see you play again. So
Oh, that'd
so
be
Danny, you let me know if there's ever a possibility. And I'm sure there are a whole lot of people that would show up if you did.
I always said, boy, I wish I could find a band out by you guys that would learn 3 or 4 Rage songs, and I'll
Come,
just come out and do the songs.
come on.
I wish I could do that. I wish I could find somebody that could pull the songs off, and I'll come out and just sing them.
That'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be great. I need to say this. I want to just publicly say thank you to all of our fans. All of our fans. I have gotten umpteen bags of fan mail for years upon years. And I really want to say thank you. Again, back to being lazy and not being able to get back to everyone. I'm so glad that there's this social media outlet that goes worldwide, and I could just say thank you to the fans for supporting us and believing in God and believing in taking the faith to the next level. And look at, here we are in 2025, and they're giving me the honor of being able to sit here and talk to you. This is
Well,
thank you.
and isn't it interesting, Danny, that this is 38 years later now, and you still have some huge fans out there who are excited to hear from you and would be honestly excited to see you play.
Oh man. Well, I hope we can get that together. That would be phenomenal.
It would be. I totally agree.
I enjoy being on stage more than I do in the studio. That's for sure.
Yeah. Studio's a lot of work. People
Oh,
don't understand, do they?
that's a job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. It totally is. Well, tell us a little more about what you're doing these days. You mentioned the 2 bands
Yeah.
that you're trying to get off the ground. Let's talk about where do you feel like you're headed?
Well, boy, again, it's so different from back in the day. You just can't put something out and then get it on the radio.
Yeah.
So about a year and a half ago, I wrote a song called Healer. Um, in kind of in the metal genre. I'm going to say it's kind of like a Tesla song, kind of a guitar strumming um, rock song. And everybody around here was like, "Oh, this is such a great song." And I said, "Well, how do you get it out?
Mm.
There are just no streaming services unless you pay big bucks to get it out." It breaks my heart for bands that are trying to make it again. Today's bands, you're either got your YouTube going or you got your TikTok going or something. And listen, I have a love for music. I have a love for the Lord, and that's what keeps me going. I get up in the morning. I have 4 beautiful kids and my wife and a job that I get to get up, and I'm sitting here breathing and enjoying my life talking to you this morning. And life goes on. Every day I write, and if something hits, it hits. If not, I leave a great legacy for my friends and fans and my family.
Yeah, and I think a really good frame of mind. Absolutely. And it's you never know what God is up to.
No, that's great. Behind the scenes, always.
You never know.
Yeah,
And something my dad used to tell me when I was growing up, he said, dream big because God is always dreaming bigger.
absolutely.
And I've lived that way, and I know that's true. And I know it's true for you, Danny.
10 years ago, if you told me I'd be sitting here talking to you, Pastor Bob, I wouldn't believe it.
Hmm.
This is really an honor. I got to let you know
Well,
that it's
thank
an
you.
honor to talk to you.
Well, I appreciate that so much.
I mean,
Danny,
I really feel you're full of wisdom, and you've had so much good for the metal community, for people that look like us, who believe like us, who have that crazy pounding going on in our head all the time,
yeah, we do.
and people who don't want to kind of give us that second chance. You were there from the beginning, giving us hope and preaching hope, and here you are still doing it. I love it.
Well, and I love it too. And I keep asking God, why in the world does He keep using me of all people?
I love it.
So glad to be here.
Yeah,
And Danny, the coolest thing is that this is family. A
absolutely.
few years ago, I started using "We Are Metal, We Are Family,"
Yeah,
and And now whenever I travel and speak at all of our festivals internationally, I'll start "We Are Metal," and everybody in unison says "We Are Family."
That's cool.
Feel like it, because this is a huge family, and can I just say, Danny, that you can count on this family to stand behind you.
Oh, I love it.
They will, they
Thank
will, and they'd be excited to hear from you again.
you.
Well, I know this isn't our last chat. I know that God is doing some things with you. He's opening some doors with you. And I have a feeling that the next time that you and I chat on here, we're going to be talking about some things that neither one of us saw coming.
Amen.
I believe that.
Great. Love it.
And I'm
I
excited
love
to have that
it. Me too.
conversation. That'd be great. Well, Danny, God bless you. Man, I've enjoyed spending the time with you. It's really good. You and I have never hung out together.
Oh,
Um, and we better. The next time you come to Nashville, please let me know.
oh, it will be on my bucket list. Absolutely.
And it would be great to get together and hang out with me and with all the guys here at the church. And
Absolutely.
love to sit down and chat. And we're always doing some planning and scheming and envisioning, and still trying to dream as big as God is.
I love it. I love it.
Let's do that together.
Good.
Yes. Well, Dan, thank you again, and God bless you, my friend. And folks, I just want to tell you, as I say every single week, don't forget, you are blessed. So go and be a blessing.